They told me abandoned office buildings were harmless. Just old computers, dead air, and empty cubicles. But they lied. Because sometimes the printer spits out memos from people who never existed. Sometimes the elevators move on their own, stopping on floors no one ever visits. And sometimes you follow the exit signs only to end up back where you started. These aren't ghost stories. These are real accounts from people who took night jobs, temp assignments, or cleaning shifts in places that should have stayed locked forever. If you've ever felt watched in an empty hallway, if you've ever heard footsteps echo when no one else was around, you're not paranoid. You're just next. So dim the lights, close your office door, and don't look at the security cameras. Because in this video, you'll hear 10 true horror stories from abandoned offices, where not everything that moves is alive. The building was supposed to be a simple site check. A week-long temp assignment, just monitoring utilities and logging nightly rounds. 5 floors, quiet neighborhood. No active staff, just me and a keycard. I arrived on Monday night just before 10 p.m. The place was dead silent, no traffic outside, no hum of city life. It felt too quiet for a downtown office complex. Inside, the power still worked, but only partially. The overhead fluorescents flickered like dying bugs, and the motion sensors lagged, leaving me in the dark for long stretches of hallway before the lights caught up. Still, the building was clean, sterile, almost preserved. My shift was simple. Start at floor 5. Check utilities, work my way down to floor 1, and log off. That first night I followed procedure exactly. But when I tried to exit through the ground floor lobby, something strange happened. I pushed open the stairwell door and stepped into what should have been the lobby, but I was back on floor 3. I thought I must have miscounted. Retraced my steps. Went down again, same thing. Floor 3, the signage confirmed it. Level 3, accounting and HR, I tried the elevator next. Hit G, watched the lights blink down from 5, 4, 3, 2, yoon, ding. Doors opened. Floor 3, I got out, more confused than scared. The layout was identical, but the lights were slightly dimmer. The exit signs glowed red, pointing down a hallway toward another stairwell. I followed them. Door was unlocked. Down the stairs again. Floor 3, I wasn't looping. I wasn't going in circles. The stairwell was linear. I was descending, but no matter how many doors I opened, it was always floor 3. By now my hands were shaking. I stopped and looked at the ceiling. There were no security cameras, no sound, just the quiet hum of old air vents and buzzing fluorescents. I took a photo of the exit sign and the room layout, then walked through another door, different hallway. Same sign. I checked my phone's GPS. It showed me moving, shifting coordinates. But the internal map wouldn't load. The signal dropped to 0. I tried calling my supervisor. No bars. I wasn't even scared yet, just frustrated, disoriented. It took me another 30 minutes to find a janitor's closet with an external emergency phone. I dialed the company line. The voice on the other end said, "Kensington Facilities, how may I direct your call?" I said, "I'm trapped in the building. The exits keep routing me to floor 3. There was a pause. Then the woman asked, "Are you sure?" I laughed nervously. Yeah, pretty sure. I've been walking in circles," she whispered, barely audible. "You're not supposed to use the stairs after midnight." Then the line went dead. I checked the wall clock. 12:14 a.m. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, coming from the next hallway, heavy, slow. I ducked behind a cubicle wall, held my breath. A shape passed the frosted glass window, too tall, almost gliding. It stopped, sniffed, and then kept walking. After it disappeared, I stood up and followed the exit signs again. I didn't care where they led. I just wanted out. They guided me through a narrow corridor I hadn't seen before. A hallway lined with office portraits, smiling faces, bronze plaques, names etched underneath. But something was wrong. Every photo had the same eyes, the same wide, expressionless stare, and one of them was me. Same shirt I was wearing. Same ID badge. Caption, Samuel Reed, Night Supervisor. Floor 3 I stepped back. The lights above me burst. Glass rained down, and every door on that hallway creaked open. I ran. I sprinted toward the stairwell and threw the door open. Slammed down 3 flights when I opened the next door. Floor 3. Only now, the layout had changed. No desks. Just rows of chairs facing a blacked-out window, like a presentation was about to start. On the far wall, a single red exit sign glowed. I walked to it, reached for the handle. A whisper behind me. "It's your shift now." I turned. Nothing there but the chairs. They were all facing me now. I opened the door. Another hallway, another sign. Level 3. Welcome back. Supervisor Reed. I haven't found the ground floor since. Every night I try, and every morning the building resets. Exit signs glowing. Footsteps in the dark, and my photo frame now hangs in every hallway. The building had been unoccupied for nearly 4 years, but you'd never guess from the condition of the place. No dust, no broken windows, no graffiti. Just rows of tidy cubicles frozen in time, coffee mugs still on desks, calendars open to 2021, and fake plants yellowing under dead fluorescent lights. I'd taken the job as a night shift facilities checker, one of those ghost roles for property companies, trying to maintain assets until a new lease came through. I didn't mind the quiet. I'd bring a book, do a walkthrough every couple hours, and clock out before sunrise. But on my 3rd night, something strange happened. I was walking past the main printer near the east corridor when it whirred to life. It startled me. I hadn't touched anything and no one else was in the building. I stood still as the rollers turned and the tray rattled, spitting out a fresh sheet, just one. White, crisp, still warm. Mimoto. Department Heads, from L. Grayson. Subject, Inventory. Audit, please ensure all workstation logs are submitted by 3 a.m. sharp. Late reports will be escalated. This is non-negotiable. L. Grayson, Night Supervisor. I blinked at the paper. It was written in that cold, clipped corporate tone. A real memo. Letterhead and everything, only I had no idea who L. Grayson was, and I was the only one assigned to night duty. I texted my supervisor to ask if someone else had been hired. They replied instantly, "No one else is assigned. You're the only person cleared for the night roster." The next night, the same thing happened. Different memo. Subject, unauthorized office entry. Last night's surveillance shows untagged movement on floor 6. Please report activity. Repeat violations will trigger lockdown. L. Grayson Floor 6 had been sealed since water damage last winter. I hadn't gone near it. I went to the print logs to see what machine sent it, but the logs were empty. No activity at all. I searched the employee database. No L. Grayson. Not past, not present. When I mentioned it to my boss the next morning, he gave me a look like I was joking. "That name's familiar," he mumbled, then waved it off. But no such employee on our records. The next night, 3 more pages printed at 2:47 a.m. Each memo was sharper, more aggressive. Subject, non-compliance. You were observed disregarding building protocols. This has been noted. You are being watched. The memo was addressed directly. 2. Samuel R. Winters. That was my name. Full name. I hadn't given it to anyone at this job, just Sam on the onboarding forms. The lights in the hallway flickered after that. The HVAC made a low, rattling moan. I felt the pressure shift in the air like a vacuum had opened. I grabbed the memos, stuffed them in my bag, and finished the round in record time. I wanted to quit, but I needed the paycheck, so I came back. This time, I unplugged the printer before my shift. If it couldn't power on, it couldn't print. Or so I thought. At exactly 3:00 a.m., I heard the sound anyway, the rolling, the whirring, the tray opening, even unplugged. The printer ejected a single sheet of paper. The page was darker. The ink bled slightly. 2. Samuel R. Winters. From L. Grayson Compliance is not optional. We know you unplugged the terminal. We saw you. You are on file. I flipped the paper over. My ID photo was printed on the back. One I'd never seen taken. I left that night without logging out. The next morning, I called the main office. They transferred me to HR. When I asked directly about L. Grayson, there was a long pause. Then a woman said quietly, "Where did you see that name?" I told her. She was silent again. Then she whispered, "He died in that building." 2016, elevator shaft accident. Night shift supervisor. The department scrubbed his file after the lawsuit. I asked why his name was still on active memos. She hung up. I returned one last time. Not to work. Just to see if the printer would do it again. It did. Only this time, the memo wasn't addressed to me. It was from me. 2. All personnel subject. Graveyard duties. Please welcome our newest shift member, effective immediately. All compliance reports are to be directed to L. Grayson, and below it, a signature line with my name, typed clean and sharp. Samuel R. Winters, Assistant Night Supervisor. I hadn't written it, but the signature looked like mine. And when I went to the ID terminal, my clearance had changed. Night Supervisor. Active indefinitely. I don't work there anymore, but every night at 3 a.m. I still get a fax at home. No number. No origin, just one word, report. I've worked third shift security for years, but there's something about abandoned office buildings that gets under your skin. The place I was assigned to last month, an old corporate leasing tower on the edge of town, was different. Not just quiet, but stale. Like the air hadn't moved in years. Even with the vents whirring and fans groaning, it always smelled like dust, mold, and carpet glue left too long in the dark. It made your throat dry and your thoughts heavier. My job was simple. Show up at 10 p.m., do 3 rounds through the 14 floors, log any issues, lock up by 6 a.m. No one else was ever there. The elevators still worked, but I usually took the stairs to stay awake. Each floor looked like a frozen moment in time. Mugs still on desks, calendars from 2019, chairs facing each other like people had just stepped away. I started hearing the footsteps on night 5. At first, I thought they were echoes of my own, but the rhythm was off. I'd step, then half a second later another faint step. Lighter, slower, not following me, just present. The first time it happened, I was on the 11th floor. I'd just passed the break room when I heard them. Not above, not below, same floor, behind me. I turned. Nothing. I paused, held my breath, listened. Silence. Then, one soft shuffle. Carpeted, dragging, I called out. "Hello?" No response. I did a full sweep. Empty. I told myself it was HVAC knocking, or a small animal. But the next night it happened again. Different floor. Same kind of footsteps, always a few paces behind. Always in stale, still air. I started dreading the 2 to 4 a.m. window. That's when the air went dense, like the oxygen was thinning. My ears would pop, and my skin would crawl as I walked the floors. One night I stood still on the 10th floor hallway and waited. No movement. Then, tap, shuffle, tap. Farther down the corridor, just around the bend. I walked slowly. Flashlight off. My heart was pounding in my ears. As I turned the corner, the air shifted. Not cooler, colder. And there was a smell, faint but wrong, like wet paper. And in that silence, I heard them again. Footsteps. 2 feet ahead, coming toward me. I turned on my light. Nothing. Just empty hallway and old fire exit signs, but the footsteps didn't stop. They passed through me. I swear to God, I felt the air ripple, like someone brushed against my coat. My flashlight flickered once. I left. Ran down 5 flights and locked myself in the security office until dawn. I filed a maintenance report the next day, said the 10th floor had electrical problems. They didn't even read it, just thanked me and said to keep patrolling. So I started recording audio. On the 8th night, I clipped a mic to my jacket and walked the floors like normal. Listened back afterward. Most of it was uneventful. Until 3:12 a.m. That's when a second set of steps kicked in, not overlapping mine, chasing them. Heavier. Faster. Like something caught up to me right before I turned the corner on the 12th floor, and then there was a voice, a whisper, right into the mic. "You're not the only one walking here." I stopped going up after that. Started faking my patrol logs. Stayed on the first 2 floors, never took the stairs past 3. But last night, something changed. At 3:01 a.m., the security door to the stairwell opened on its own. The lock disengaged. I heard the click, and then the sound of footsteps, descending, slowly, steadily, 1 step every few seconds. Held my breath as they reached the landing outside the office. Then stopped, and stood there, waiting. Didn't check. I didn't move. I turned the monitor to the stairwellcam.blackscreen.signal. Lost. I unplugged the system, grabbed my coat, and sat in my car until the sun came up. Today, I checked the building's blueprints. There's something I never noticed before. On every floor, from 10 through 14, there's a closet marked archival storage, but those closets don't exist. Not physically. I've walked those halls. They're just walls, but the blueprints show them, and one of them, the one on the 12th floor, is directly behind the hallway where I always feel watched. I don't know what they stored there. I don't know who used to work in that wing, but someone, or something, never left, and it doesn't like walking alone. I was on the 12th floor of the old Kensington building, taking inventory of whatever junk had been left behind. Most of the offices were stripped, just shells of desks, a few cracked monitors, and filing cabinets full of dust. It was supposed to be an easy job. Walk through the abandoned floor, mark equipment, and tag anything that could be scrapped or recycled. I was alone, just me and a clipboard. The place was dead silent. Too silent. No power, no AC, no city noise filtering in through the sealed windows. Just the sound of my own boots echoing through empty halls. And then a phone rang, a sharp, sudden trill from the other side of the floor. An old desk phone. I froze mid-step. There wasn't supposed to be power. No working landlines. The utilities had been cut off months ago. The phone kept ringing. Steady. Clean. Not like a glitch or a dying battery, but like someone was calling. Right now. I followed the sound slowly, the hair on my arms already standing up. Room 12-14, a corner office. I pushed the door open and found the source. An old beige phone on a dusty desk, the kind you see in 90s movies. It was ringing. The line button blinked red. I stood there, staring at it, heart in my throat. It felt personal, like the ring was meant for me. I shouldn't have picked it up, but I did. The moment I pressed it to my ear, the ringing stopped. Silence. Then, after about 3 seconds, a voice whispered, "Sam," my name, not shouted, not spoken casually, whispered, drawn out like a secret. I dropped the receiver and backed away so fast I nearly tripped. The phone went dead. The line light stopped blinking. I stared at it, waiting for it to ring again, but it didn't. I should have left right then. But I didn't. Instead, I called my supervisor and asked if anyone had been on the floor recently. Maybe someone was messing with me. He said no. Said I was the first one to step foot in that wing since last fall. Said the phones weren't even connected. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. I kept checking to make sure my door was locked, though I couldn't say why. The next day, I went back. I had to, but this time I brought a cheap voice recorder. I needed proof. I powered it on before stepping off the elevator. The 12th floor was exactly as I left it. Silent, still, and stale. Nothing happened for the first hour. I marked more desks, ignored the lingering anxiety. But then I passed room 1214 again. The phone wasn't ringing. It was off the hook. The receiver dangled by the cord, slowly swaying back and forth. I stepped inside cautiously. The desk looked the same, but the dust had been disturbed. Someone had moved papers, shifted the chair. On the seat was a crumpled post-it note curling at the edges. My name was written on it, Sam. No other words. Just that. I grabbed my recorder and rewound the audio. It had captured almost nothing for the past hour, until the 5-minute mark. Then came the static. Then came the whisper. Don't hang up this time. I dropped the recorder. I left. I told my supervisor I wouldn't go back to 12. I'd do floors 5 through 11. Hell, I'd clean the bathrooms. But not 12. He laughed. Said I was just spooked. Then he said something that made my stomach twist. They used to call that floor the echo chamber. Too many weird noises. Phones ringing. People swore they heard voices. He brushed it off. But I couldn't. A week passed. I stayed on other floors. I tried to forget it, but then one night while finishing up on floor 7, I heard it again. A phone. Ringing. Not from my floor. From 12. Through the vents. That unmistakable tone, muffled but still sharp. I stood there frozen, just listening. And then, like clockwork, my personal phone vibrated in my pocket. No caller ID, I answered. Static. Then the same voice, now a little clearer. You answered someone else's call. Click, I dropped the phone. The building feels different now. The kind of quiet that isn't really quiet. Like something's listening. I can feel eyes on me in the stairwells. I avoid any room with a landline. Yesterday, I found a printed roster of employees who once worked on 12. There was a David, a Karen, a Mia, and one name I didn't expect, Samuel Reeves. My full name. Same spelling. Same middle initial. But it was dated 1997. I was born in 1996. I don't know what that means. I don't know if someone is confusing me with him, or if something in that building never let him go. Last night, my phone rang again. Unknown number. I didn't answer. This morning, I found a sticky note under my apartment door. Call back. I don't want to, but something tells me I already did. It started as a routine check. I was the overnight security guy for an old corporate high-rise, 28 floors of dead offices, stripped cubicles, and long-forgotten badge readers. The company that built it went bankrupt almost a decade ago, but the building was still under preservation due to some legal dispute. No tenants, no traffic. Just me, a bank of security cameras, and silence. Every hour I did my rounds, stairwells, restrooms, lobbies, boiler room. The building always felt too quiet, like a place holding its breath. But that night, something changed. I was reviewing the camera feeds at around 2:08 a.m. The conference room on floor 16 lit up on the monitor. That was odd. The motion sensors shouldn't have triggered. No one had accessed that floor in weeks. I leaned closer. Inside the room, on camera, were people. 5 of them seated around the long oval table, unmoving. The overhead lights were on, projector screen glowing faint blue. One man at the head of the table stood up, gesturing. Another leaned forward, hands on the table, nodding. But here's the thing. I had just walked past that room 20 minutes earlier. It had been empty. No lights. No chairs set up. I tapped into the motion logs. Nothing. The elevator logs, no activity to floor 16, no keycard swipes, no doors opened. Still, the figures on the screen remained. Their faces weren't clear, blurred like a corrupted video file smudged where features should have been. One of them turned their head directly toward the camera and the feed glitched for a second. I switched to the hallway cam outside the room. Nothing. Just darkness. No movement, no light spilling out of the door like it should have. I toggled back, conference room still occupied. I grabbed my flashlight and keys, took the elevator to 16, and braced myself. I stepped off and instantly noticed the hall was dark. No light under the conference room door. I approached slowly, every step heavy on the carpet. I opened the door. Empty. Just a dusty table and 10 stacked chairs against the wall. No projector, no power. Dead silent, but when I got back to the security office and rewound the camera footage, the meeting was still there. I paused the video, printed a screenshot, and stared at it under the desk lamp. The man at the head of the table looked familiar. His stance, his silhouette. I flipped through the binder of archived IDs and froze. It was Harold Mercer, former CEO. Died in that very room in 2014 during a shareholder call, collapsed mid-sentence from a brain aneurysm. He'd been dead. For almost 11 years, I went back to the footage. Now the figures were gone. The room was empty again. Just chairs and shadows. The next night I kept an eye on that camera. Nothing for hours. Then, right at 2:07 a.m., it flickered. A new figure appeared, this time alone. A woman, seated at the far end of the table, her back to the camera. She didn't move for 7 full minutes. Just sat there. I checked all the systems again. Still no door opened. Still no light in the hallway. I considered unplugging the camera, but part of me wanted to see what would happen next. At 2:14, she stood up and placed something on the table. A manila folder. Then, without ever turning around, she walked to the far wall and vanished out of frame. I raced to the 16th floor again. When I entered the conference room, it was just as before. But there, sitting right where she'd placed it on camera, was a manila folder. I reached for it with shaking hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Meeting agenda. July 6, 2025. That was today's date. Below it, a list of 5 names. All former employees. All deceased, including Harold Mercer. And then, at the bottom, my name. I stared at it, heart hammering. The 5th name. The last name. I ran. I tried to quit the next morning, but the building's contractor couldn't be reached. The number rang endlessly. I left a voicemail and never got a call back. I didn't return the next night. I stayed home, locked every door, unplugged everything. But at 2:07 a.m., my bedroom light flickered. My laptop, shut and powered off, turned on by itself. The screen showed a live feed. Floor 16, the conference room. All 5 chairs were now filled. The projector glowed blue, and in the center of the table, a 6th chair sat empty facing the camera, waiting. That was the 3rd time tonight. I stood frozen just outside the break room, mop in one hand, garbage bag in the other. It was 2:17 a.m. The entire building had been empty since the company shut down 6 months ago. No staff, no visitors, no lights in most apartments. Just me, assigned to clean the floors, bathrooms, and common areas every 3rd night. Easy work. Until now. The first time I heard it, I thought I was going crazy. A single beep followed by the familiar hiss of hot water running through the old Keurig. I walked into the break room expecting to find someone. Maybe a squatter, maybe another janitor no one told me about. But the place was empty. Still, there it was. A fresh cup of coffee sitting neatly in the tray, full to the brim, steam rising. I stood there staring at it, waiting for someone to walk out of the shadows. No one did. I checked the login system. I was the only one badged into the building that night. Security cameras, blanked out between 2:02 and 3:00 a.m., marked as a scheduled update window. Weird, but I brushed it off. I tossed the cup, wiped down the counter, and kept working. But the next shift, it happened again. Same time, same machine, same fresh cup. This time, I didn't touch it. I just stood in the doorway, breathing hard. The air smelled off, like burnt plastic mixed with something metallic, something that didn't belong in a break room. I checked the machine. No auto brew timer, no leftover pod. Just a single used capsule inside, still warm. I didn't mention it to the supervisor. What would I say? The ghost of an accountant still wants his morning fix? He'd laugh and tell me to get more sleep. By the 3rd night, I was starting to dread it. That time, I came in early, 1:45 a.m., determined to see it happen for myself. I sat in the hallway outside the break room with my cleaning cart, pretending to check my phone. At exactly 2:11 a.m., the lights in the break room flickered on by themselves. The machine beeped. I slowly peeked around the corner. No one was there. The Keurig hummed to life, brewed a full cup, then stopped. I walked in slowly, heart pounding. On the counter, next to the steaming cup, was a yellowed, sticky note. It hadn't been there earlier. 3 words. Still hot. Yours? My stomach dropped. I grabbed my phone and took a photo. But when I looked at the screen, the note didn't show up in the picture. Just an empty counter. No cup, no paper. But they were still right there in front of me. I left early that night. The next day, I called the building manager, casual-like. Asked if anyone else had experienced anything strange. He was quiet for a moment before saying, "Well, the VP passed out in that break room. Heart attack. Died before paramedics arrived. That was maybe 10 years ago. Why? I didn't answer. Just said thanks and hung up." When I returned the following night, something had changed. 2 cups this time. One full of coffee. The other empty. A second sticky note lay between them. Join me. The air felt thick, heavy, like being inside a running dryer. I backed out of the room and left the building without finishing my shift. I didn't care about the docked pay, but it didn't stop. 2 nights later, I returned, only because I had no choice. Bills were piling up. I avoided the break room, focused on other floors. But around 2:30, the smell hit me. Burnt coffee, sharp and acrid. I knew it was there again. When I finally passed by, the lights were already on. 3 cups now, 1 full, 1 half drunk, 1 shattered on the floor, and a new note. You're late. The next night I decided to unplug the machine. I figured if it didn't have power, it couldn't brew. I came in early, yanked the cord from the wall, and even left a "Do Not Use" sign on it. At 2:12 a.m., the breaker in that hallway tripped. Every light flicked off. Then, one by one, flickered back to life. I ran to the break room. The cord was still unplugged, but the machine was running, brewing, hissing, spitting steam like a dragon. This time, there was no cup. Just the stream of hot black liquid pouring directly onto the floor. The smell burned my throat. I heard it then. Breathing, not mine. A second breath. Shallow, raspy, like someone on the edge of death. I turned, but no one was there. On the wall, scrawled in coffee, were the words, "I said, sit." I backed out, hands shaking. As I reached the door, the lights shut off again. Total darkness. Then one final ding. From the machine. I didn't go back. I quit the next morning. Didn't even pick up my last paycheck. But last night something weird happened. Around 2:15 a.m., my home's smoke detector went off for no reason. My kitchen smelled like burnt coffee. My power flickered. I walked into the kitchen and found my own coffee maker on. Brewing. I don't remember turning it on. Next to it, someone had set a paper cup I didn't own, and beside that cup, a single sticky note. Finally home. The first thing I noticed was the glow. A faint, pale light spilling across the hallway carpet, bleeding out from an office door that should have been locked. I'd been cleaning that abandoned building for weeks, and not once had I seen a working computer. Most were gutted shells, screens cracked, cords tangled in dust. So when I saw that light at midnight, my gut told me to keep walking. But curiosity is poison. I pushed the door open. The room smelled wrong, like burnt wires mixed with mildew. On the desk, an old tower PC hummed softly, the monitor alive with a bright blue login screen. Except it wasn't locked. It was open. Desktop loaded. Files lined up neatly in folders as if the employee had just stepped away for a smoke break. The name at the top corner froze me. David Carlisle. HR, I knew that name. There was a brass plaque in the lobby with the names of employees who had died in a fire 20 years ago. Carlisle had been one of them. He wasn't supposed to be logged in. I told myself it had to be some IT thing, an old profile cached on a test system. I stepped closer, scanning the desktop. Dozens of files, all with recent timestamps. The most recent one was a Word document labeled Minutes. I opened it. The page was filled with one line repeated over and over in shaky text. Meeting in progress. Do not leave. My skin crawled. I closed the file. The mouse jittered under my hand like it had a pulse. I stepped back and the cursor began to move on its own. It slid across the screen, clicked open another folder. A photo popped up. Black and white, grainy. It was the office I stood in, but not as it was now. It looked alive. People in suits sat around the table, faces blurry, heads bent like they were in the middle of a meeting. My breath caught. The figures began to shift in the photo. Slowly. One by one, their heads turned toward the camera. Toward me, I slammed the monitor off. The room dropped into silence except for the faint clicking of keys. My eyes adjusted to the dark and I realized the keyboard was typing. The monitor was off, but the keys clattered in a steady rhythm. I yanked the cord from the wall. The noise stopped. Relief washed over me until the printer beside the desk roared to life. A single sheet fed out. My hand shook as I pulled it free. 3 words in bold black. "Sit down." I backed into the hall, heart pounding, clutching the paper like evidence. My radio crackled to life in my pocket. A voice I didn't recognize whispered, "You're late." I didn't go back in. I forced myself to finish the shift, every light flicker making me jump. But when I came back the next night, the same office glowed again. The monitor hummed, logged in. Same name, same desktop. On the desk this time was another sheet of paper waiting for me. "Welcome back." I powered off the system, yanked the cord again. The screen stayed on. I left. That night, I had a dream I was sitting at that desk. My hands were typing, but I didn't know what I was writing. I could hear whispers around me, feel breath on my neck. I woke up covered in sweat, and my hands hurt like I'd been clenching something all night. The next day, I checked my phone. There was a document in my files I'd never created. I opened it. Meeting in progress. Do not leave. Just that line, hundreds of times. I told my supervisor about the office. He stared at me a long time, then finally said, "Don't clean that room anymore. It's legacy. Just skip it." That was the end of it. No questions, no curiosity. Like it was something they'd seen before. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. On my final night there, I walked back in. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to see it one last time. Maybe it wanted me to. The room looked the same, but colder now. The monitor wasn't glowing. The computer was dark. The chair was pushed in. But on the desk sat a fresh nameplate. Carlisle, David. And next to it, another one. My name. Night staff. I turned and ran. I didn't even grab my cart. I never went back. But sometimes when I'm online late at night, my computer locks up. A strange folder opens by itself. A file loads. Minutes.docs. And inside, just one line, over and over, meeting in progress. Do not leave. And somewhere in the back of my mind I can hear the faint clicking of keys, typing in rhythm with mine. The first night I heard the elevator ding, my whole body went cold. I was alone in a 30-story office tower that hadn't been rented in years. My job was to sweep, mop, and keep vandals out. Nothing fancy. Most of the building was dead quiet. The kind of silence that pressed against your ears. So when the elevator stopped on my floor, doors sliding open with that cheerful chime, I knew something was wrong. No one else was supposed to be there. Security logs confirmed it. The lobby was locked tight. I told myself it was a mechanical fault. Old systems do weird things. I peeked around the corner, mop still in hand. The doors were open, the light spilling into the dark hallway, but the car was empty. Just metal walls and that faint hum of electricity. I tried to laugh it off, but the doors stayed open longer than they should have, as if waiting. Then they slid shut and I heard it, the faint sound of someone breathing inside. I stood frozen, heart pounding until the car moved again. The floor display above the door lit up. 22, 23, 24. The building only had 20 floors. The next night, it happened again. Same time, just past midnight. I was mopping the lobby when I heard the chime above me. The system logs showed no request, no button pressed. The car just decided to climb on its own. I watched the numbers tick up until they stopped on my floor. The ding echoed down the stairwell. This time I forced myself to stand in front of the doors. When they slid open, the car was dimmer than before, the overhead light flickering. My reflection looked warped in the brushed steel. The air smelled like damp earth, sharp and metallic. I stepped closer, and that's when I noticed something scratched into the back wall. Deep gouges, etched with something sharp. Get out. I backed away, shaking, and the doors closed on their own. The car descended. I stared at the floor indicator until it blinked out. I should have left. I wanted to, but the paycheck kept me coming back. On the third night, I set my phone to record. I aimed it at the hallway facing the elevators. Midnight came, and right on schedule, the chime sounded. The doors opened. Later, when I checked the footage, my stomach flipped. The video showed the empty car. Then, frame by frame, a shadow formed. A figure standing perfectly still in the corner, head bowed, too tall for the car. The recording ended with static, my phone shutting off on its own. That night, I swore I heard voices inside the shaft. Low, muffled conversations, like dozens of people trapped between floors. Every so often, one voice cut through clear, whispering my name. By the fourth night, I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to write it. Stupid, maybe, but I needed to know. At midnight, when the ding echoed, I stepped inside. The air was colder than outside. A chill that sank into my bones. The panel had no buttons, just a flickering display. The doors closed. My stomach dropped as the car moved, but it didn't go up or down like normal. It shuddered, rattling, the walls groaning as if the building itself hated the movement. When the doors opened, I knew I wasn't on any floor that existed. The hallway stretched out, dimly lit, lined with offices that looked frozen in time. Desks cluttered with papers, half-empty coffee mugs still steaming. I stepped out, heart racing, and the doors closed behind me. I walked down the hallway, every nerve screaming at me to turn back. The air smelled of mildew and copper. Phones rang faintly in the distance, though every desk was coated in dust. I reached one office where the door was half open. Inside, a computer was on. The monitor glowed pale green, displaying a single message. "Welcome back." The hairs on my neck rose. I turned to run, but the hall stretched longer than before, twisting, narrowing. Behind me, I heard the elevator ding again. I sprinted toward it, legs shaking, and slammed into the car just as the doors closed. The last thing I saw before they shut was a row of figures standing in the offices watching me. Their faces blurred, their eyes too dark. When the doors opened again, I was back in the real lobby. The panel showed G. My phone was dead in my pocket. I ran outside into the night air and didn't look back. I quit the next morning. I told the property manager I couldn't do it anymore. He didn't even argue, just nodded like he'd heard it all before. As I left, he called out after me almost casually, "Did it stop on your floor too?" I didn't answer. But some nights, when I'm lying in bed, I swear I hear it. The ding of an elevator arriving where it shouldn't. And I know if I ever open my door, I'll see it waiting at the end of the hall. The first night I walked into that office, I knew something was off. The building smelled like dust and stale coffee, the kind of sour bitterness that clings even when no one's brewed a pot in years. The company had shut down a decade ago, but the property manager told me it was cheaper to keep the place maintained than to let it rot. My job was simple: mop the floors, wipe down surfaces, keep the mold at bay. I figured it would be easy money. What he didn't mention was that I wouldn't be alone. The lobby lights flickered when I swiped my badge. Every sound seemed too loud. My boots on the linoleum, the squeak of my cleaning cart. The whole place was hollow. Every cubicle stripped of personal items, just gray partitions and dust-coated desks. But halfway down the first hallway, I heard it, the steady clack of a keyboard. I froze. It was faint but unmistakable. Not a random creak, not pipes or rats. Typing. I followed it toward one of the cubicles, heart beating in my throat. The sound stopped just as I reached the corner. I flicked on my flashlight and swung it across the desk. Empty. Just an old keyboard and a computer monitor covered in dust. I leaned closer, brushing the grime with my glove, and noticed the faint glow of the power light. The monitor was plugged in. I hadn't seen the outlet working. Most of the electricity was supposed to be shut off on that floor. Still, I told myself it was leftover charge, a trick of old wiring. I shook it off, turned up the volume on my headphones, and tried to focus on scrubbing the lobby glass. But the sounds kept coming. An hour later, while cleaning the break room, I heard the distinct beep of a printer warming up. I turned and saw paper sliding out of a machine across the room, curling onto the tray. My stomach knotted. The printer looked ancient, dust caked along the vents. I stepped closer, hesitant. The page was crisp and clean, not aged at all. 4 words were printed in bold black. "You shouldn't be here." I dropped it and stumbled back, muttering curses into the empty room. My hands shook so badly I nearly spilled my cleaning solution. I wanted to leave, but I needed the paycheck. I convinced myself it was some leftover job. Maybe the system had been queued years ago and decided to spit it out tonight. That explanation barely held me together long enough to finish the shift. The second night, I came armed with my phone camera. If something happened, I wanted proof. I'd barely clocked in when I noticed something strange. One cubicle had a chair pulled out, fresh dust tracks leading from the wheels. Yesterday it had been tucked in tight. I told myself maybe I'd brushed it without noticing. But when I walked past later, there was a coffee mug on the desk. Not dusty, not cracked. Fresh, with a ring of wet condensation beneath it. I leaned in, sniffing. It smelled like coffee. That night the typing came back, louder, filling the entire corridor. I filmed as I walked toward the sound, my flashlight shaking across the walls. When I turned the corner, the cubicle was empty again. But the monitor flicked on by itself, bathing the room in pale blue light. An email was open on the screen. The sender field was blank. The subject line said my name. The body of the message was just one sentence. "Why are you in my office?" I bolted, my cleaning cart rattling behind me, heart hammering against my ribs. I nearly tripped over the mop bucket on my way to the service elevator, but the doors wouldn't close. The panel blinked, out of order, though I'd ridden it just an hour before. I was trapped. I forced myself back through the building, aiming for the stairwell. As I passed the cubicles, the fluorescent lights overhead flickered in sequence, one by one, following me like a spotlight. The typing started again, furious this time, keys slamming down in invisible hands. I ran. In the stairwell, I slammed the door behind me and leaned against the concrete wall, gasping. The echo of my footsteps faded. For a moment I thought I'd escaped. Then I heard it. The shuffle of papers above me, the groan of a rolling chair. The sound wasn't coming from the office floor anymore. It was coming from the stairwell itself, one landing above me. I sprinted down, 2 steps at a time until I reached the lobby. My hands fumbled on the badge scanner before the door unlocked. When I finally burst into the night air, I swore I'd never go back. But I did. Bills don't pay themselves. I told myself I'd imagined it. That exhaustion and darkness had twisted my brain into seeing what wasn't there. The third night I forced myself to walk calmly through the lobby, ignoring the way the lights buzzed and dimmed. I avoided the cubicles, stuck to cleaning bathrooms and sweeping stairwells. For most of the night it worked, until I reached the second floor. The air was different there, staler, colder. My breath fogged in front of me, though the thermostat read normal. The cubicles on that floor weren't empty. Papers littered the desks. Staplers, pens, mugs, and even jackets hung on chairbacks. Like the place hadn't been abandoned at all. I stood frozen in the middle of the hallway, staring at it all. I knew damn well it had been empty yesterday. Now it looked like everyone had just stepped away for lunch. I pulled out my phone and started filming, whispering into the mic that this was real, that someone needed to see it. Then I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving across the cubicles. I swung my light toward the sound, but all I caught were shifting shadows. The footsteps grew louder, closer, circling me. My chest tightened until I thought I'd suffocate. My phone buzzed in my hand. A notification. New email. I opened it. The subject line said, "Stop filming." The body of the email was a photo. Of me. Standing exactly where I was, I dropped my phone. It hit the floor and skittered under a desk. When I crouched to grab it, I caught movement in the reflection of the dark computer screen above me. A figure sitting in the chair, hands moving over the keyboard, head bent low. But when I whipped my light up, the chair was empty. I didn't finish the shift. I didn't even clock out. I ran. That was 3 nights ago. Since then, I've gotten 5 more emails. No sender, no subject. Just attachments. Each one is a photo of me in different parts of that office. Always working. Always cleaning. Sometimes I'm not alone in the picture. Sometimes there's someone sitting at the desk behind me. And the worst part? In those photos, I'm smiling.